Hey, dudes, Chris. Welcome back to my life. We are in the fall of 1973, and my parents have a wonderful life again. My mom was teaching at Fatima, and my father was the assistant band director for all the Catholic schools in town. Now, I promised that this series wouldn't just talk about who and what, but more importantly, why. Because it makes absolutely no sense why someone living in Jackson would be teaching in Michigan Center, but actually it really does. So let's focus on mom. In the 50s, the bishop decided that Michigan Center needed a Catholic parish and established Our Lady of Fatima. I have no idea why, but my great aunt was a charter member of that parish, and she eventually convinced her little sister to bring her big ass Catholic family over to that parish. So even though mom had her initial sacraments in other churches in Jackson, she spent her formative years at Fatima. She got married there, so when we moved back to the area, that's where she wanted to teach. Dad's story is a little bit more interesting and fun, so we need to get off the timeline to revisit some earlier videos. So I talked about Ken and Carol getting married. What I didn't tell you is that Ella refused to let her daughter marry a papist, and so Ken converted. And my Ronnie was raised a Lutheran. So, what are we looking at? Like 2 dozen years later or so? Not mine, again, timeline, Julie's mother wouldn't let her daughter marry anyone outside the church. And so Ron was baptized Catholic at Notre Dame. Not that one either. Notre Dame Parish in Michiana, which is the same place I was baptized about a year later. So that's kind of a very interesting part of my family's history, that my father's grandma wouldn't let his dad marry his mom unless he turned his back on the Catholic Church. And my grandma wouldn't let my dad marry my mom unless he became a Catholic and started with the wafers and booze. Just interesting. Very, very interesting. So we are in the fall of 1973, and I mentioned in a previous video, just really touched on it, didn't really delve into it much, so I'm going to here. My parents had a really cool hobby in the fall. So my father was the eldest of three. My mother was the eldest of 12. She had an Irish twin. For the benefit of the uneducated, that is two kids who were born within 1 year of each other. Her brother John was 1 year behind her in school and a senior at the University of Michigan at the time that Ron and Julie got married. He had literally married the girl next door a few months earlier, and as a wedding gift gave Ron and Julie Michigan season tickets. I assume that it was something like, hey, I'm going to get 4 tickets on my student priority this year. Why don't you two come to the games with Sue and I? Mom grew up a Michigan fan. Dad didn't care one way or another, but the 1970 season got him hooked. Apparently me too, because I went to every game that season in my mother's womb. And even though times were tough, the next couple years, they made sure that they had money to keep going. And so 1973 was the 4th year in a row that they were going to games with now my godparents, John and Sue, and Michigan hadn't lost. In the 4 years that Ron and Julie, that my parents went to the games, until the end of the 1973 season when they tied Ohio State 10-10, and everybody's looking around like, what the fuck do we do? We didn't win. Are we happy? Do we clap? What is this? This is new. And I think that's good enough to end there. Thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. And as always, take care of yourselves, YouTube.